"You're not leadership material," Aaron said, flat and clean, like he was reading from a memo. Then, without looking up, he added, "You're a liability." Just like that. A word usually reserved for lawsuits or equipment that catches fire. I sat across from him in the same blazer I'd worn to every investor pitch, every crisis meeting, every 11 p.m. war room. But suddenly, I wasn't a stabilizer or strategist. I was a risk. Derek, the new COO, smiled at his coffee like he'd heard this before. Maybe he had. Maybe this was rehearsed. They didn't fire me. That would have required a spine. They just made it clear I wasn't part of the company's new direction. No seat at the table, no visibility, just the same workload and a shrinking shadow. It wasn't even about performance. It was about presence. I was the wrong kind of presence. Too quiet to parade, too competent to control. They wanted me useful but erased, and in that moment, I stopped waiting for credit. I started watching for collapse. I sat in my car for 43 minutes after that meeting. No tears, just silence. Not the stunned kind, but the kind where your brain reorganizes itself. I thought about all the weekends I didn't take, the 2 a.m. email chains I stitched together like tourniquets, the budgets I cleaned up so they wouldn't be embarrassed during audits. Maintenance. I was never flashy. I never played the politics game or angled for visibility. I thought competence would be enough. I thought outcomes mattered more than headlines. And maybe that's my fault. I let them define the value of my voice by how quiet I kept it. But that ends now. Not with shouting, not with revenge, but with record keeping. Because what Aaron didn't know is that I documented everything. Every shortcut, every blind eye, every little lie they papered over to impress the board. I wasn't going to explode. I was going to dissolve, quietly, but not before I removed my hands from the wheel. Derek, the new COO, started making changes within the week. Superficial ones. Plants in the lobby, a standing desk policy, a Slack channel called #IdeaMagnet. He introduced energy audits that involved sitting in on team meetings and saying things like, "Is this room alive right now?" I watched him undo efficiency in real time. I didn't fight it. That's what they wanted, right? New energy? I gave them space. And when invoices went unpaid, when vendor relationships quietly soured, when the HR exit rate ticked upward, no one asked me why. Because I was still here, technically, still smiling in the all-hands meetings, still forwarding the right decks, just one step removed. I had always been the net. Now I let them feel the fall. The truth is, they never realized how many disasters they didn't have simply because I caught them before they formed. Now I let them collect. 3 weeks in, I was officially sidelined. Not fired. That would have required ownership. No, they transitioned me to a strategic support role. No reports, no initiatives, just a nice title and nowhere to stand. I knew what that was. A waiting room. They thought I'd get bored, or better yet, embarrassed, and walk out on my own. But I didn't. I showed up. I sat in that glass fishbowl of an office and responded to every vague request with a calm, "Can you clarify the deliverable?" And they couldn't, because there wasn't one. That's when Derek started slipping. You see, the COO role isn't about vision. It's about execution. And he had none. He asked for numbers that didn't exist, made promises the back end couldn't support, and smiled through failure like it was all part of the plan. Meanwhile, I waited, I documented, and I started talking to the right people. Finance didn't trust Derek. Legal didn't like him, and IT hated that he kept trying to streamline architecture by Googling software they already used. I didn't have to poison the well. He did that himself. All I did was open my inbox, quiet lunches with old colleagues, a few off-the-record conversations. I never badmouthed. I just told the truth, slowly, carefully, in the form of timelines and receipts. And the more they looked, the more they found. Like the acquisition contract Derek rushed through without proper compliance checks, or the automation vendor he personally secured that turned out to be his college roommate's shell company. But the real fracture came from inside. because Aaron, for all his talk about optics, had bet the company's credibility on someone who didn't understand the infrastructure. And when cracks formed, everyone looked at me, not for blame, but for the blueprint. I didn't return the stares. I just kept showing up, still strategic support, still silent. Let them squirm. Let them sit in their mess. They'd reduced me to furniture, and now they realized I'd been the foundation. It was almost funny. HR even called me in for a career realignment meeting, asked if I'd be interested in helping Derek streamline operations. I said I'd be happy to help, as long as everything was in writing. Suddenly, they remembered I had boundaries and archives. They didn't like that. The company's image started slipping. Investors noticed the gaps. Clients started asking why response times lagged. A few contracts stalled. And the big one, the renewable transport partnership worth 7 figures, went dead silent after Derek showed up late to the second pitch meeting. I didn't smile. I just forwarded the contact details to someone I trusted. Outside. That contact was with a regulatory firm. Not a whistleblower, not exactly, just a professional courtesy. I asked them to review some irregularities. The files I'd gathered weren't dramatic, no scandals, no crimes, but they told a quiet story of negligence, misdirection, and strategic irresponsibility. And that was enough. A soft inquiry was launched. Nothing public, just a formal set of questions routed to compliance. And Aaron's face when he saw the request? Paper white. Derek tried to play it cool, but you could see it, the shift from smug to scared. Suddenly, every meeting became urgent. Suddenly, I was included again. I declined, told them I was at capacity with the role they designed for me, and I was. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually full. Not bitter, just done. I watched the building tilt. I kept the door open behind me. Aaron asked to meet privately. He used words like misunderstanding and recalibration, said he'd always seen my potential. I let him talk, let him twist. When he finally asked what I wanted, I told him, nothing, I'm just watching. He didn't like that. Men like him need to feel in control, even when apologizing. The silence I gave him was louder than any retaliation. 2 days later, Derek resigned. The company line said he wanted to pursue new opportunities. In truth, he was asked to go quietly. The fallout hadn't gone public, but the board was spooked, and they wanted distance from chaos. They needed stability again. Guess who they came back to? The inquiry spread quietly like smoke. Vendors were re-interviewed, contracts pulled, IT logs reviewed. Aaron called an emergency strategy retreat. Derek stopped posting on LinkedIn. I started sleeping again. No more late-night Slack pings. No more quick asks. I was still on payroll, still smiling in the hallways, but my desk drawers were empty, my personal files backed up. I was done being the patch. If the ship was sinking, they could paddle, they could explain, they could rebuild, assuming anyone stayed. The irony? I wasn't trying to burn it down. I loved what we built before they turned it into a theater. I didn't want to punish them. I just wanted to stop holding it together while being told I was in the way. They offered me the interim COO role while the dust settled. I declined. They offered a consulting retainer. Declined again. Then they asked what it would take. I told them a formal audit of Derek's tenure, full transparency with the board, and every record corrected to reflect actual contributions. No spin, no buried reports, just truth. If they couldn't handle that, they could lose quietly or loudly. Didn't matter to me. I had nothing left to prove. And everything they'd lost, it wasn't stolen. It was simply withdrawn. Mine. Eventually, they agreed. The audit was done, quietly but thoroughly. Corrections were made, some contracts renegotiated. The 7-figure partnership, it landed with the firm I'd connected. Under my name, not the company's. I didn't post about it, I didn't announce anything, but people noticed. Recruiters called, founders reached out, and slowly, without fanfare, my name traveled further than Aaron's ever had. I never asked for credit, but I made sure it found me. I resigned 3 weeks later. No bitterness, just closure. I left my badge on the desk, my laptop wiped clean, my inbox with one final message. Stability isn't a weakness. It's what keeps you from collapse. I didn't expect a reply, but I knew they'd read it. Aaron nodded when I walked out. That was his apology. I didn't need more.
Sometimes I still get emails from the old office, mostly from mid-level staff who want advice. I answer when I can. I remember what it felt like to be invisible while everything leaned on me. I don't hold grudges. I hold standards. And if I've learned anything, it's this. Being underestimated isn't an insult. It's an advantage. Let them look past you. That's when you move.
The last time I saw Aaron was at a conference. He smiled like we were old friends, asked if I'd be open to collaborating again. I told him I only build with people who know what they're standing on. His smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. I walked away. No need for revenge, no need for applause, just the sound of my heels on polished tile, and the silence that followed, filled with everything they never saw until it was gone.